All right. Okay. We're live on Facebook and YouTube. Got a new friend in the house, and we're going to get to know her here in just a second. I've never met her, and that's cool. Keep it spontaneous and intuitive, creative, imaginative, and courageous, depending on what we're talking about. But I'm looking forward to it. So, in addition to that, thank you everybody for your continued love and support and contributions. Allow us to keep doing this by the seat of our pants every day. That's not a complaint. And if these shows resonate with you, please share, particularly on YouTube. And if anybody has any ideas on how to expand awareness on YouTube because they are suppressing us, uh, please send me a message or make a comment or something. I would appreciate it. How's it going, everybody? We got a new friend in the house, Cherie Doyen. I think I got the name right. I hope I got the name right, but we'll find out in a second. I'm going to pull her up now, and we're going to get to know her a little bit. Let's see. Here we go. All right. Here we go. How you doing? Did I get the name right?
Well, you're close. You got my mother's intent, but I live in Missouri, right? So I was never called Cherie.
It's Cherie.
Yeah, so it's just Sherry. That's what
Sherry. Okay.
yeah. She
Well, I've
intent,
known people that spell it that way, and they some pronounce it one way and some pronounce it the other way.
yeah, well, she had a wonderful intent, but as I said, I grew up in the country in Missouri and it never caught.
Well, you can't complain about that. You still in the country in Missouri?
Yeah, I am for
Yeah.
the moment. I'm getting ready to move to New Mexico at the end of the month.
Is that right? We got a lot of friends down there. There's a lot of people in the light worker community down there. What part of New Mexico are you going to go to?
Jemez, which is
Hmm.
right above about an hour and 15 minutes up from Santa Fe in the mountains.
Oh, you're north? Are you north of Santa Fe?
Yeah,
So you're right there in the Four Corners then, right?
yeah, I think I am.
Wow.
I
Yeah, I
have not
remember.
even been there. I've just like this opportunity just like went like this.
Uh-huh.
I was like, okay.
Yeah, that area is really special. I remember not knowing anything about it, and this had been back like 2014 or 2015 when in the early days of Soulology, and I remember getting this transmission. It was so powerful that I thought I had to get up and just go. But
Mhm.
then I, didn't really quite understand. I was just coming into the understanding of, if you do something in dimension, so to speak, that you're actually doing it, it's just as relevant. But
Mhm.
that area, of course, it's that four corners. There's the Hopi, the Navajo,
Right.
Zuni. I mean, it's a powerful, powerful area. It really is.
I have done a lot of that, just been shaken awake in the night and say, go here and go there. And I've just dropped everything and done it. And that's kind of what I'm doing right now.
So, how long have you been on that road? How long have you been doing that type of stuff?
Well, I grew up in a very abusive home, and
Mm.
during my childhood, I was having all of these experiences, right? And didn't really know that other people were having them. And the sicker I got, you know, I was finally told you're dying. And I was like, okay, well, I've got to do something completely different. I threw everything in the trash and went out and spent a week with Deepak Chopra. And I followed him around the planet for a while. And, from there it was, go to Ireland and then, I find a shaman, go to Baltimore, oddly, find a shaman, and it's just been a journey.
Wow. And
Yeah.
so you that's sounds like similar to the many light workers. They had a abusive childhood. There was some level of disassociation
Huge.
that basically was their way of coping it. But I guess from a higher perspective, allowed them. My wife is such a person that allowed them to really uh, hone their skills in terms of communicating or connecting to infinite intelligence and all the faces it brings to the table. Is that how it happened for you?
Oh my goodness. As a child, like I just had all these adventures,
Hmm.
right? And it was very much my body was just an idea, right? I was speaking to a woman the other day about near death experiences, and I said, I'm not sure I know the difference,
Yeah, true,
right?
true.
If you're leaving your body, you're leaving your body.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, because an out of body experience, near death experience very much seemed to be one and the same. The energy of it seemed to be one and the same.
Yeah. Like I would end up at the plane of masters. Like I had this panther that was my best friend that, he was always protecting me. Yeah. And it's interesting because I went to a Catholic school and, I spent a lot of time on the plane of masters. And I would sit there in religion class and I'd be like, no, Jesus did not say that.
Yeah.
Like he would never have said that. I
Yeah.
spent a lot
I
of
love,
time in the hall.
yeah. What? Being separated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
stop.
That's now what is the plane of masters and from your experience?
Um, there were some high level beings there. There was a Native American, I want to say tribe there. Jesus was there. Buddha was there. There was an Asian guy. I don't remember his name, but he had a lot to say as well. And yeah, they were just really high level beings. Probably one of the bigger impact was the Native Americans. Of
Yeah.
course, they have been to me on this plane too. I spent 10 days in New Zealand with the Waiata,
Wow.
and I have like traveled the US, in the Native American circles.
Now you started doing this at a young age. Do you still visit that space, or did does
Um,
it has it evolved into other things?
it's kind of evolved into other things. I use that a lot with my clients,
Hmm.
right? Because the quantum physics behind PTSD is pretty miraculous, right? It's absolutely miraculous. And I have the ability to see what other people are seeing.
Mm.
So we actually initiate an out of body experience and a flashback and can go back in time and actually rewrite to a degree
Yeah. Yeah.
and bring back their molecules, their fragmented
Yeah.
molecules that are trapped there.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard that and been been privy to that process, and I've seen it explained or utilized in different ways. And the reason we talk about this stuff is because there's so many people waking up right now.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's not linear, it doesn't matter if it happened to you, 20 years ago and it happened to them now, that there's a lot of commonalities and code available to help people, which is what you do on an individual
No, I
basis.
believe that like they're such genius people,
Mm.
right? They're brilliant. They haven't spent their whole life in 3D, right?
Yeah.
Like they've been in and out interacting with all the dimensions and for a kid who grew up like that to be able to see in the next room,
Mm.
survival tool,
Yeah.
right? Being able to read someone's mind, because their words mean nothing, right? To be able to read their mind is imperative for survival.
Now, when you connect to somebody, when you have a session, are you communicating, in your opinion, with their higher self when you talk about reading their mind?
I really guide them to do it themselves,
Yeah, of course. That's the
right?
real. That's
So
the real
versus
way. Right?
like me telling them anything, I could read for them, but
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
no, I really want them to find truth,
Yeah.
and we walk around with these stories and they're laden and they're heavy with emotion, and we spend our life circling backwards,
Yeah.
right? So the most beautiful thing for me is for somebody to start living forward,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I talked to a woman today that she was just like, Cherie, I'm going back to school, I'm getting my driver's license, and she's 50 and she's been on disability for 30 years, right? And to
Yeah.
see that she's living again, right? Yeah, that's why I'm here. I feel like I've really walked through that, and when I was studying with Chopra, we went nose to nose at one point because there's a level of victim shaming on so many levels,
Yeah.
right? I was talking to a woman today, and she said, "Well, you chose that,"
Yeah.
and I said, "Well, Who says? Who says that the adults didn't make good choices?
Yeah.
That puts all the responsibility on the victim versus, personal
Yeah.
responsibility on both sides, right?
Yeah. It's a yeah. I can relate to that. And I think we hit. I know I did. Early on, which was, I guess, a revelation, which was, as I dug into that question, and I don't know that there's any question we can actually really answer. Only, only for, but but I was told, hey, whether it's a circumstance or a consequence, it really doesn't matter. What are you going to do now? I think
Exactly.
there's like I think a meme I saw recently. I've seen it several times. See if I can pull it back up, and it was like, you're not responsible for what happened to you, but you are responsible for what happens from here out. So,
That's what Mr. Chopra looked in my eyes and said.
yeah, yeah,
He said, maybe not, but when was the last time you got hurt?
yeah.
You
Well, and
know?
then our friend, our mutual friend, I didn't know she was your friend, Kathy Mason.
Yes.
And I think this is related. There's no coincidences as things pop up in synchronicity. Ask her about time loops, and I think that's probably related to what we're talking about right now. Can you tell us what?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, what I see is that as a person disassociates, as a child
Hmm,
disassociates, they create an out of body experience. And, in the medical world, it's like we just disappear.
yeah,
There's no energy around where we go or what we do, right? Well, the ingenious thing is that the kid looks down and he goes, well, I think I should encapsulize that so that that infection doesn't filter into my tomorrow, and I can
hmm,
get up and have breakfast with the human being that just raped me,
hmm,
right?
hmm,
And hence the amnesia
yeah,
that these children experience,
yeah,
right? So when we can go back and dismantle those loops and allow time to move,
hmm,
right? And bring back their molecules, because the astral body has weight. If it has weight, it has molecules. And if it's fragmented, there are molecules trapped in that time loop,
yeah.
right?
Parts of you, yeah,
Yeah,
parts of you, yeah,
yes.
yeah,
And when we can integrate, and that word I feel like is used a lot. Um, I feel like I put them in a blender. There's a vortex that shows up, and the molecules get truly integrated back into the whole. People will very instantly go, "Huh, I feel bigger.
yeah,
Huh, my arms feel longer." You know, It's a very visceral, real time
Yeah.
reaction. And then, the behavior that's been traveling through time is dismantled,
Right on.
right? I've worked with people with alternate personalities, which is just an extended version of um, PTSD.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point.
Mhm.
The whole definition or perspective of mental illness is quickly being altered.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's from anything. And I picked this up, I've had some experience with a family member for a number of years who I recognized had a sight into the other side, but also had a great challenge in fitting in. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And But it looks like with this expanded consciousness that, at least in the work that I'm doing, I'm seeing more and more people stepping out. Detaching from meds, waking up to a point, having enough support to where they can actually step out and be whole in and of themselves, as opposed to the way it was 10 or 20 years ago. Because I mean, that's, if you look at the indigenous and the, Aboriginal societies, anyone that came in like that, they created space for those people because they knew they had something that the rest of them didn't have. But I want to go back to something you said a minute ago about the disassociation and then, of course, the blocking into or the compartmentalization of these events, these traumas into the subconscious that come out later, through work like you do and other ways. I wonder sometimes how much do we all have in common in terms of our collective consciousness or unconsciousness that's been blocked that we all have in common. Aside from the more singular experiences, I wonder if on a collective level, if there's been some level in this grand design where we've actually had our mind swiped, basically.
Well, I believe that to be true.
Yeah.
I don't think that we would have 1 in 3 humans on the planet being sexually violated
Yeah.
and that not be true,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And, you know,
I've I've not heard that number, but I've heard I think what one in well, and I don't know I've word this where I got this, but it's like 1 in 5 uh, women, and I think the number was like 1 in 18 men, and I thought that's not even close. It's got to be more
no,
like what you're
because
talking about. It has to be. It has
I
to be.
literally like, yeah, because they're not counting all the human trafficking kids.
Yeah.
They're not counting all the kids that are, have died during that.
Yeah.
They didn't count me.
And even adults.
Yeah, they didn't count me. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So that
Yeah.
that number, I literally maybe will have almost every person that sits in front of me.
I would think so.
Hmm.
And even if it's not, because I know I have memory, but I still can't say for sure that it was in this lifetime. But I've had plenty of, I say plenty, I've had a few transmissions come in, some pretty intense that involving smell and taste and, and other physical sensations. I know it happened to me, but I don't know. I can't recall when, but I guess the important thing is to wake up to that, the gift of waking up to it, and then and like you said, integrating it, bringing it back home, and anything you've left on the table.
Well,
It's a big issue right now, isn't it?
it's a huge issue. It's a huge issue. And it's interesting how many people just don't acknowledge that it's happening. And I think that, a big piece that my clients deal with is family denial,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And it's not like that stops, you know, when they wake up and understand what's happening. It's not like suddenly the family goes, "Oh yeah, you're right. That was really awful." They don't,
yeah,
right? So for somebody to truly heal, often it takes walking away from your mother and your
yeah,
father and your sister and your brother,
yeah,
right? And truly being on the planet as a solo.
yeah. There's
And
been a lot of that.
yeah, there,
There really is.
because like Emmett Fox says, you have to change your environment to change your mind.
He's my favorite author.
I love him.
He's my favorite. He's actually the Sermon on the Mount was like this is back in, 22, 23 years old, and I was diving into this stuff, starting with like self-help, like Napoleon Hill, W. Clement Stone. But I had some, obviously some Western religion, indoctrination, Catholic Church, and later on Baptist. Uh, but my point is that conception of what is God, and all the things that go with it is over here. And over here, you get introduced to that metaphysical aspect. And for me, Emmett Fox was a hell of a bridge. Uh,
Yeah.
Power Through Constructive Thinking, uh, I thought was a phenomenal book. Sermon on the Mount's a phenomenal book. And then one of the things that I still utilize today. In fact, it's a very similar to. I'm married to an incredible woman that's downloaded Sacred Wisdom for about 20 years. Has a similar background to you, by the way. And when she introduced some, modalities to me that were very similar to what he called the Golden Key. I don't know if you remember that one, the
Yeah.
Golden Key.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hadn't heard his name in a long time. But yeah, very good.
I got a whole new, because I as well, like, first went through every religion, I think,
Yeah,
and then when I ended up with in the audience of Deepak Chopra, and I would hear these physicists and quantum physicists stand and talk about a one-liner of Jesus's, I was like, oh, well, this is a whole new game,
mm,
a whole new man that is not the man that hung on the cross,
yeah,
you know?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And then, in regard to, what seems to be a big part of your practitionership and dealing with the people with PTSD, and like you said, the vast majority of them having some type of sexual molestation experience or that type of thing, and then seeing what's kind of boiling at the surface, in the mainstream and of course in the alt news in terms of pedophilia, trafficking, and that type of thing. What do you see? What's your perspective on why is that coming to the surface or seemingly coming to the surface now, and how it relates to us as our individuals in terms of our own efforts to expand ourselves and therefore the universe?
Well, I do believe that usually things have to hit rock bottom and
Hmm.
fracture,
Yeah,
right? For true change to happen. And, I feel that there are a lot of us here that are really speaking,
yeah,
right? And, hopefully pushing that forward. Um, yeah, and I think that out of this, I'm praying we come out with a new thought and a new respect for our children,
yeah,
right? You know, I was foster parent. My grandma raised 52 foster kids. I'm CASA trained. Like in the 3D, in the systems, I worked. Right, I worked with human trafficking organization. I worked in the shelters with people, and there's a lot of brilliance trapped there.
yeah,
A lot of brilliance. And one thing I would say is that quantum therapeutics, we're actually working in time, which is different than working in memory. And going back and actually releasing these loops throughout time,
yeah,
right? So it's not like we're just relegated to what happened today. And yeah, and the time loops are huge, I feel
yeah,
like. So what's
absolutely.
interesting is I find that most of my people who have a ton of loops have a lot of cysts in their bodies. I think our bodies are very reflective
Yeah,
of what's hanging out there.
physicalizing the, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so, like, with all of this too, and what you said, I think is really important about speaking. Um, I think it was in 2017 that Me Too came out, and that was really powerful. And I remember having my own experience sitting on a friend's couch, and all of a sudden, like I said, I couldn't tell you if it was this life or another one, but I remember the smell, and I remember having to jump up off the couch and walk out in the snow and do a video because I was directed to, I was guided to. And, uh, and I don't even know what I said in 18 minutes, but it was 15, 20,000 views later. And I realized, even though I didn't understand it at the time, I realized the importance of speaking it out, not just on that subject, but other subjects. So I think where I'd go with the question here is, given your experience and your wealth of experience as a practitioner with these types of people, how is there anything, because there's so much complication to our experience, and we can make it that way, obviously, and even in terms of ascension and the different aspects of it, but in terms of this deep wound, um, this, and it is very collective, obviously. Is there anything more important, do you think? Not saying that everyone should do it, or if you do it, you're good. If you don't, you don't. You're not good. But is there anything more important than actually just speaking it and just saying, "Hey, this is what happened to me. I'm just going to share it with you. Here's where I'm at with it." That kind of thing. Just having an open discussion about it.
I think that the purpose is important,
Yeah.
right? I know in therapy, saying my story over and over again made it my reality,
Yeah.
right? Because I had complete amnesia. I was like, the 51st Dates movie. I woke up every day as though I was just born. I
Hmm.
had very little memories. And, the more that the flashbacks would come in and the more I talked about them, I felt like it became
Groundhog Day.
all I knew.
Groundhog Day. Right.
Yeah, it was awful. It was awful. And I couldn't get out of it.
Yeah.
Right. And, people would say, get over it. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, how? Tell me
Yeah.
how. Tell me
Yeah.
the action,
Yeah.
you know?
And I think that's what's part of, one of the byproducts, or subdivisions of what's occurring with ascension is these intuitive, uh, organic modalities, processes, ways and means are starting to surface. But I get what you're saying. I had to go to a forced rehabilitator, whatever you call it, alcohol, drug, anger rehab years ago, in early in my journey. And that's one of the things I noticed, because part of the protocol was I had to go to AA meetings, like, I don't know, twice a week or something. And I told, and by the way, Emmett Fox is actually the inspiration for the 12 steps. And I had done my own kind of 12 step, I guess. I'd walked the streets for 2 years by my own choice, and took a step forward, took a fearless and moral inventory of myself. So the tenets of the 12 steps, I mean, I admired. I thought, wow, that's a good structure. But going to the meetings, after three or four, I was like, we're just beating a dead horse here.
Yeah.
Everybody's basically, for lack of a better way to put it, crying in their beer.
Yeah.
And how do we elevate beyond this? It was more of a codependent structure than it was a structure of self-empowerment, although some people obviously can go through that and empower themselves and expand themselves, and of course having to detach from that being the end-all cure-all. But yeah, I get what you're saying. That's a good observation.
Yeah. Prior to that, I was a very magical creature.
You're still a unicorn.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I see when I look at you. I see a
That's
unicorn.
awesome. And I lost that for a while because they had me so drugged,
Yeah.
and, my body was so ill. So it's good to be back and be in wholeness and able to serve.
Yeah. It would make sense to me, or I'm not gonna say it would make sense to me. I am looking forward to the experience, as if this continues on, and collectively, the big elephant in the room, as our friend Delia just said, rears its head, finally, for everybody to see in the great unveiling. I'm more inclined to look at, for myself and from everything that I observe, what the level of compassion is versus what the level of justice is. as a victim with strong recollection, I'm sorry to use that word, but as someone who's experienced these things in a very profound and extreme way, where are you at in terms of compassion or lack thereof for those who played the role of victimizer, and if you've made some headway there, how did you get there?
You know, I chase forgiveness around the world.
Yeah.
And, you know, I truly find that to be a level of, I don't like the word detachment. I can't find a pretty word, but like a level of emotional indifference
Hmm.
to the pokes and prods
Right.
of those that are living like that
Yeah.
and have affected the humanness and the child of myself, right? And I love them. I want them to grow. That doesn't mean I have to hang out.
Yeah. I mean, hanging out with them, I mean, we can still get to the point that we're, or be on the trajectory or the path of what we're talking about without having to associate with people. You talked about the family thing. Most of the people on here that are viewing live and replay, including myself, are estranged from their family.
I
Whether
know,
there's, whether there's, an open discussion about the influence of sexual distortion and that type of thing or not,
right? But
but
that's really a sad thing, because each one of us as human beings are a cell in this collective body,
that's right.
and the family is the organ.
Yeah.
And until we can look and be clear about and remove the idealization of what that means, right? Probably a third of our children on this planet are living in situations that are below a concentration camp.
Hmm.
Somebody's in control of their food, their water, their
Hmm.
body, their clothes, their air,
Hmm.
and love is expected, honor is expected, right? And I think there's a huge imbalance there,
Hmm.
right? There's a huge lack of responsibility, and it propels abuse,
Yeah.
right? Because the
Perpetuates.
abusers are not, there's nothing happening. They're just going on to the next one and the next one and the next one.
But is there nothing happening, or is there something happening? And what I mean by that is there how much credence would you give to the um, the contribution an individual can make, regardless of what they can remember or not remember in terms of their own sexual distortion or molestations or whatever? But how much credence would you give to the power of the internal change that we make, you make, anybody makes, in terms of uh, assisting, at a minimum, the transformation of this lower level sexual energy into a higher, powerful, infinite, eternal, holy and whole energy? Um,
I guess like I see that for sure, but I also see, I work with human trafficking children, right? So I also see that, right? And I see that it is a huge moneymaker on this planet right
yeah,
now. And our children are being bought and sold.
yeah.
The foster care systems are funneling them out, and that needs to change. And I think partly that's going to change in awareness in families recognizing it when it's showing up, right?
How does that play out in terms of as within without? In other words, we know how it almost doesn't matter how we got here, like so many of us have discovered, in terms of, is it circumstances, is it consequences, but this is where I'm at, this is my level of awareness, and now I'm going to go to work and bring myself into a higher alignment, healing, whatever terms you want to use. But in terms of like as within without, how do we affect change? You obviously are working on the front lines of this very important issue. We're also in a time when we're understanding that we're much more than these bodies, like you said in your early reflections of your life. But how much Uh, in other words, are the things that you are subjected to in your efforts to bring this to a higher light and transform it, um, these are physical representations of the energetic field, are they not? And if they are, would it not make would it not make sense that the energetic field need to be changed? Because if we can change the energetic field, therefore the physical representation of it will automatically change with it. I mean, I guess what I'm trying to
I guess
ask you.
that I guess like what I see with that is like the people I work with need an action.
Yeah,
They
true.
need an action,
Yeah.
right? They need to see something changing in front of them and not think about it,
Mm,
right? They've spent a lot of time in therapy, they've spent a lot of time thinking about it, and it's like, what can I do now? Like, what's an action I can take that is going to propel my life forward and free my brilliance? They all know that they're brilliant. Like, I
yeah.
can walk into a shelter and say, how many leave their body? How many loop? How many know they create time loops? They all know it,
Mm,
right? So when you think about that, you think how much of the magic and brilliance is trapped in this quote umbrella of mental illness, right? And I find that each time there's such brilliant creatures, right?
yeah.
That each time one of them moves and is start moving forward, I feel like, whoa, that's another person stepping into the light grid to work the magic on the collective,
Right on.
right? And
And then I
yeah,
think the other thing that comes into play too, and these are just things that we approach with open mindedness, because I think we're all figuring out that that's kind of a rule of the road. Any part of our lives that we close down or create an absolute, we are constricting the free flowing energy of the universe. But what I'm getting at is, at the end of the day, on the surface of the earth, linear time wise, you're 29 and I'm 58. And, but, everybody's got a different age. But the fact is, everyone, if we espouse to what the general school of thought is in these light worker circles and so on, is that everyone is an eternal soul. Everybody's chosen to come here, and everybody's pretty much set up the template of their life, understanding that within the experience of that life, they would have the ability to exercise their free will at any time. So it's a pretty tricky, it seems to be a pretty tricky road, and yet there seems to be strong evidence that the only way to bring it into full alignment is to bring the human consciousness into alignment with all these things that we talk about and that we play.
integrity,
Yeah,
integrity. We have to, what we think and what we say and we want,
mm,
what we do are in alignment. We're connected.
yeah,
I see things as almost everything as circuits, right? And we can't plug in if our cord, like if our being is frayed and scattered about, right? I
yes,
find it very simple when, the eye of the needle, right? What do? We're trying to every moment twist that fiber back into wholeness so that we can fit through there, right?
yes,
And, it was like always getting to the precipice, but something pulling you backwards.
yeah,
What if we
yeah.
could eliminate that?
Well, and and there's a yeah, and there is a I think a credible school of thought. I'm not saying it's absolute. That this is a collective ascension. That regardless of what the fractals do, that this is happening anyway. So let go or be dragged. And I guess where I'm going with this one is there seems to be a wave of collective expansion in terms of our consciousness as a group, but there still seems to be the power of the individual and its ability to actually impact the entire collective in the moment. Free will, alignment, that type of thing comes to mind. But it's a big issue. It's coming out. I had no idea we were going to talk about it, and I'm glad that we did. There are no coincidences. In fact, we're going to do a show on Friday. Martin McNichol wrote a great post last Friday, not specifically talking about this issue, but how we handle these type of issues, right and wrong, good and bad, people channeling higher aspects and purportedly being instructed or guided that those people over there are bad and these people over here are good, just to put it in plain terms. This is a very tricky subject because it does involve children. It does involve sexual violation and all the things that go with it. And
Well, I mean, I haven't met an abuser that wasn't abused too. You
yes,
can't
exactly.
expect a person to be
Yeah,
violated. I
yeah,
mean, you take a dog and you beat them and
yeah,
hurt them,
yeah.
they're going to be scary people.
Right
Or
on.
they're going to be hiding, spend their life hiding in a corner, right? And we've got a huge population on this planet that is, on that spectrum.
Yeah,
So, I've worked with abusers and it's like they've so much trauma as well,
yeah.
right? So we can't judge them.
No, that's what I was getting at. Like, where are we going to be when everything is unveiled? Uh, to me, the more it would seem, the more important thing, because we got to remember we're connecting with aspects or dimensions that we exist in at a higher level. Let's just use that term, where there is no forgiveness because there's no need for forgiveness. There's no healing because there's no need for healing. So we're here expanding a blueprint, expanding a template, expanding to a higher truth, having to deal with this stuff, and it's challenging. I still feel that, in talking with you as this is coming in, that, and I've got a show on Sunday that a really brave, beloved brother, Amit Manis, has made a post about what's going on, the subject we're talking about. Said, I want to come out with my own story. Can I come out on your show? So we're going to do a special show on Sunday. I really feel like these coming outs, these declarations, these conveyance of the stories and the experiences are going to be very, very powerful. And in and of themselves, between the lines, between the words, maybe assist in the expansion of the higher frequencies taking over, regardless of how slow or how fast we move here.
Yeah,
It's a big one.
it's
It's
happening. It's
yeah,
happening. You
yeah,
know, it's amazing. I've had women who have had to sacrifice their own babies. I have worked with them personally. It's not a story,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that is, you know, it's something that's just not really acknowledged
yeah.
is going on.
Do you find it in your own experience? I mean, there's no right or wrong. I'm just curious because you are right here on the forefront of this. Do you find it? Uh, where do you stand in terms of separation, unity, or separation and lack thereof? Either or, in terms of those who play that role, who, to your admission, if they abuse, they were abused. Uh, do you do you struggle with that? Are you good with that? Is it a work
I
in
don't struggle with that.
progress?
I feel like it's a giant ball that's been rolling for a really long time,
Mm.
and often through generations,
Yeah,
handed down,
yeah,
taught. And, my passion is wholeness.
yeah,
And I don't care which side of the fence you're on.
yeah.
If I can walk you into wholeness and you're going to pop into that light grid, yes, right?
If somebody comes to you as a client, and let's say it's me, and my wife's a practitioner, so I have inside information, and I would think the way it goes is, especially if it's the first time, I mean, they're going to want to tell their story. And I think that's very important. I think it must be at some point, and you made reference to this earlier in the show, that you might have to step in and say, hey, as she told me many times, do you want to talk about it or do you want to clear it? Uh, is it difficult for you to step in and say, or what I mean by that is it difficult, or do you find that they're available in their presence when it comes time to start to clear it, or do you find that some of
I
these,
really do, especially, with the times,
yeah,
right? I find it to be easier and easier.
yeah,
And, I often say, I let them share their story once,
yes,
but mostly I focus on what are you bumping up against in your life today?
yeah,
Because
as a,
that's going to take me to the root of where that is.
yeah,
And that's not about the story. That's about going back in time, rewriting your perception of it, and dismantling that loop and allowing time to flow again. Because the thing is with PTSD, it's like 40 years ago is yesterday.
yeah,
Where if you take a ball of thread and have it all wadded up, you know, there's no space in between. And
yeah,
for systemic abuse, like abuse that is happening daily, right? It's just now what's interesting as a child, it's odd that I was so aware. But, I would leave a trauma and go back to my room with the thought of trying to remember what happened.
wow,
Like, I need to remember this because people were asking me all the time what was happening,
wow,
right? And I couldn't remember. And I remember kneeling there and rocking as I did when I would meditate. And, I could feel like a pop and it'd be gone, right?
wow,
Which is the same feeling as when you get up, wake up having to go to the bathroom and you're dreaming.
yeah,
And you try to remember going to the bathroom and you get that pop and it's gone. Same thing, right? And but here's the thing with any black hole, it's an energy suck, right? So the exhaustion, the chronic fatigue, like all of it, fibromyalgia, all the autoimmune diseases, like dissipate
yeah,
when they come into wholeness,
yeah.
you know?
And I guess in terms of alignment and dissipating the physical representations of these blockages and centers of traumatic energy storage, or however you want to put it. But I guess in terms of what you're describing, that could actually be applied to any traumas,
Yes.
anything that's stuck, or whether it be ancestral, whether it be from a,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Right? Because what I'm tracking your physical responses, your words,
hmm,
your behaviors,
hmm,
your emotional responses, and your spiritual responses. A lot of kids that have lived through that are brilliant, like I said, spiritually brilliant people, and they're pissed off at God.
yeah,
They are so angry at God that, they turn everything off. And we need them. They're brilliant.
yeah.
They're
They
brilliant.
they need them too,
They need them.
right?
Yeah, everybody needs them. The world needs them. They're brilliant.
So in your experience too, how many, I'm just curious, like what percentage, be it half or whatever, come in the door and stuff comes up they didn't even know about, that may even have
Always.
not been from this lifetime, stuff like that. How much of that is evident?
Always.
Always.
There's a lot of memory recovery that happens here, and past life stuff. If there's a loop hanging out there, we're gonna find it. Right?
Do you find that if a, let's say there's a particular loop plane and it's been through several lives, or that's what the basic prognosis is, do you find that if clearing one clears all the copies of it?
If we can get the first one,
The first one. Okay.
that's when the choices started being made out of fear and start going sideways.
Yeah.
Right. So I find people that are suffering are living sideways.
Hmm.
Right? Life never starts going.
Good. Yeah. A horizontal versus a vertical.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can picture that.
just everything is sideways, you know? And they're so constrained out of fear
Hmm.
that either they're not making any choices, they feel like they don't have any,
Yeah.
and because I've never even known how to make them.
And this year has been a phenomenal year from everyone that I've talked to. It's not always been easy, but there's something's changed, something's different, especially since the first of the summer. But in terms of your practice and what you've been able to observe and experience with your clients, have you noticed a substantial change in 2020 in what energy is being presented to you in terms of the client as a whole, as a composite, this year?
I find an availability.
Openness,
Yeah.
more
An
open.
openness to, like, I live in a very Christian state, and that was, I'm Christian, I can't do that, I'm Christian. And I find that all to be melting away, and it's just like, show me how.
Yeah.
Show me how to get out of this, right? I want to live now. And I feel that to be a difference than the dormancy that I was previously dealing with, where felt like I was trying to get them to want it, right?
Yeah.
You know?
It's not a hard sell.
Yeah.
They're coming in open.
Yeah.
And so much of what we're doing seems to be at an unconscious level, at least for a short period of time. Let's just say theoretically, the energy comes in, it's made available. We're already transforming, and then the human kicks in and goes, "Hey, this is what's happening." Right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And with everything going on, there still seems to be, uh, in this perfect design that we all created, in this realm, this whole, system of programming that is built to distract us from ourself.
The
Uh,
matrix.
and of course, this subject we're talking about is probably the first and foremost. But do you see that changing? Do you see people becoming more confident in themselves and investing more in themselves and so on? Is that what you're saying as well?
Well, I feel that the world is shaking, and I think that this level of people that have been on the journey are rising really quick, and the ones that are waking up are searching for freedom,
Yeah.
right? They're
And
searching for freedom.
do you feel like stuff has moved really fast in 2020?
Things have moved really fast.
What do you think it's going to look like the next 3 or 4 months?
I hope I can just, like, sit here one time and you done, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or that nobody would need me anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I was
I
thinking
could
about
just go
that.
write children's books.
What's that?
I my dream is that, the world is in whole and in euphoria, and nobody needs me for their suffering anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can go off and write children's books.
Yeah. I was thinking this along the same lines. Yesterday, I had a show with a young lady, 37, and she had, a long history with Lyme's disease, some other things that went with it, fibromyalgia, and some other things. Really intense, really deep, incapacitated for quite a period of time, and has absolutely skyrocketed. And I have a couple of other friends that have had bouts with Lyme disease that are very high vibrational. And I thought to myself, I wonder if at some point it would only make sense that somebody who's actually embodied, the low end of it, let's just put it that way, and has transformed, through, intuition and communication, connection with, the infinite intelligence, creates a instantaneous, for lack of a better description, instantaneous healing. Like
Yeah,
we're both open and you just go bloop and it's done,
yeah. How amazing would that be?
Yeah. Well, it seems
Ready
like
to see that.
information's moving faster, so that would be.
It's definitely moving faster,
Yeah.
for sure. For
So before we get out of here, is there anything that you want to talk about, anything you want to announce? And I just want to say this as well. I would, encourage you, to put your links up on, this is on 3 Facebook pages, but on my Facebook page, Todd Medina, because that's where most of the traffic is, and also your links on YouTube at the Soulology One Studios channel. It'll be up there. It's live there as well, so people can, reach out to you. But is there anything that you want to talk about or cover, or you want to do any type of blessing transmission? You want to dance for us, anything like that?
Oh, I'm so grateful to be here, and I find our energy to be shifting whatever needs to be shifted,
Yeah,
right? I'm not one to be on ceremony.
good.
Um, like you said, I'm in the trenches with people, and my passion is to guide people out of that as quickly as possible
Yeah.
and as directly as possible, right? And so that they can live. Like it's truly just a passion. And if I can be active in ending human trafficking, I will have done what I came here to do.
Well, I think you're doing it, and one thing I'm figuring out, and again, it's not gospel, it's just my opinion, but I think we're doing a tremendous amount of work in the energetic fields from the core of our intentions, and what physical actions we take from there ultimately um, are almost like a projection of it. But the real evidence, of course, in the energetic field. And I do feel like we've made a tremendous amount of progress in the energetic field due to people like you. And I just want to thank you for your service on
Well,
behalf of.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
I guess I've always felt like I was in a video game.
Yeah.
So, if we're in a video game, am I responsible for the program of the game? Or are we in a video game?
I have used this analogy many times privately with myself, and I've mentioned it a few times. I haven't taken it that far with those questions. Um, are we in a video game? I think, in a sense, yes.
I think so
I
too.
think we all. This is my opinion. I think we all constructed. I don't think anyone's here. I think our free will, first and foremost, was exercising coming. Um, I think that yes, there was a certain video game set up. There's some pretty credible arguments or narratives pulled down from channeling and such. I won't mention names. People that come on the show that talk about maybe an overlay or a distorted overlay was put into this polarized realm, again with the agreement when it was presented by everybody, for the purpose of maximizing the potential of our expansion. I think that's a great question. Um, and
Well, I
sometimes,
often think because you had mentioned earlier about like, you know, the compassion towards the abuser
mhm,
and, you know, if we're in a video game, everybody is making their own moves. And their goal is to get from here to there.
exactly,
My goal
exactly,
is to get from here to there. So, you know, depersonalizing, right? And removing the emotion allows us to move into action and move out of a pinball game,
exactly,
right? And
exactly.
start playing chess.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing that's because everything has these multiple meanings.
Hmm.
So you can look at some of the projection that's been occurring the last few weeks in the community in terms of some of these issues where there's polarizing projections from people that have been out there in the forefront for a long time. And I'm not throwing rocks at anybody, I'm just making a point. And the point being that from that, there's been some people commentating, hey, everybody, keep your nose out of everybody's business. It's their path. And so if you kind of look at that from a different angle, and we go back to where we first, by my theory, where we first exercise our free will, which is before we incarnated, we can also say, if I look at this or look at that, it may look absolutely horrific from my human aspect, but from my higher perspectives, my multidimensionality, all my aligned bodies, including my human, I can look at the path that they chose and respect and judge it. And I don't have to have all the answers. And by infringing uh, too much in that energetic field, I'm also ignoring my own journey by getting distracted in someone else's. It's a very, to me, it can be a very complex thing. I try to keep things simple,
Yeah.
but I love the questioning, and I have to say that Yeah, I think the video game is a very good analogy.
And
And
there's
then
a level of personal responsibility if you're playing a game.
yeah, 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 and I think we
Each
know
player.
that. Yeah, I think we know what. I think in a way, I guess a way to put it would be a couple things. One, we know what's right for us, and and my wife often says, well, we just know. Our whole body lights up. We just, we've all had that knowing. And then I think the other thing I look at is if I stand on one end of the spectrum and let's just say another soul or another human hybrid soul sharing this experience is on the other end of the spectrum, uh, they are just as righteous in their conviction as I am in mine, yet they're diametrically opposed. I can't even begin to understand how they can think the way they can. But that's not going to be solved at my human comprehension level. It's going to be solved, for lack of a better word, resolved or aligned by the alliance or alignment of all of my aspects, known and unknown, as I continue to seek that, that higher truth in myself. I don't know. It's
Yeah, it's
thought
interesting.
provoking.
I mean, I think, you know, having been that child, like, you know, I didn't, that was very confusing to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a level of victim shaming, true. I felt like completely humiliated and
Yeah.
ashamed that
Absolutely.
that
I mean, how
happened,
could you not?
right?
How could you not?
But it's misplaced.
Yeah.
It's completely misplaced.
Yeah.
And yeah.
My
So,
wife had that, like I said, I alluded to earlier, a similar experience from 3 to 13. And I looked at her story in the early days when I knew her, met her, and my mind was blown. Now I put myself through as an adult through some seriously traumatic, sexual distortive situations. It was by design, and I watched her transform herself and do the same, transform, assist others in transforming their lives and their blockages and their traumas. So it's like, yeah, these things that are, I was told on the streets when I started my journey, many times, blessings are burdens and burdens are blessings, as I'd be walking around homeless with no money, no food, no car, no nothing, no family, whatever. And then it would come in and go, hey, well, if you had all that, oh, and by the way, you did. Blessings are burdens and burdens are blessings. And so I think we're all also getting to a point where we realize that these things that we feared, that we separated ourselves from, have actually provided us with the ingredients for what may be, in this space and time, the greatest transformation in the history of the universes.
oh, for
We're
sure.
all we're all right there front and center.
For sure.
Beautiful, beautiful, beloved sister. It's been a very, very powerful hour with you, and I would love to collaborate with you again later in the year if you're open to it.
Oh, I would love it.
Yeah.
I would love it.
And maybe after you move, send us a message, and who knows, we might be in that part of the country, and I think we're going to be in Sedona the last week of September, and I'm going to speak at a conference there. I'm excited about that, and I
Amazing.
love that area. It's a powerful, powerful area, and there's
It,
always, it's like a cosmic superhighway. You never know what you're going to get, but
yeah.
one thing's for sure: you're not going to get out of there without addressing certain things that you've been unconscious or avoiding.
Yeah. No,
It's
that's totally true.
Yeah, it's great for that. You
Totally
take
true.
care. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you so much.
Peace out. Bye bye.